My ex-husband and I got divorced due to my mother-in-law's relentless bullying. We hadn't even been married for a year. He and I were coworkers and we had a normal office romance that eventually led to marriage. The only thing that wasn't normal was my mother-in-law. From the beginning of our marriage, my mother-in-law, who doted on her only son, almost like something out of an 80s or 90s drama series. We got married because I got pregnant, not something rare to hear these days. But my mother-in-law yelled at me, "How dare you do such a thing before getting married? You're a shameless vixen and he..." Hey, it wasn't just me involved in the act. It's shocking to be treated like this on the first meeting, and it's extremely rude, making it hard to see how we could ever get along. I thought my husband would step in and say something stern to my mother-in-law, but instead he said, "Come on, Mom, I can't stay single forever," simply pacifying her, not reprimanding her. My mother-in-law muttered, "But Mark, women who get pregnant before marriage are bound to cheat." Again, it wasn't just me who created this child. I was irritated, but I thought I needed to be the mature one here and stayed quiet. "There's no way that's true. Sarah is totally into me," was my husband's response. I was unjustly accused of being a cheater even before we got married, and my husband's response was plain nonsense. I'll say it again, I didn't create this child on my own. Why am I blamed to be the only one at fault? While my husband was still pacifying his mother, I lost all the will to listen to my mother-in-law. This mother-in-law is outrageous. I have my husband's child in my belly, so I can't just leave. And so began my short-lived marriage life. My husband lives with his parents before we got married. We had agreed to live together with just the two of us after getting married. However, my mother-in-law created a big scene saying, "What are you talking about? Mark, baby, this is your home." "Alright, if that's what you want, Mom." My husband changed our plans quickly, and we ended up living with his parents. He didn't even discuss it with me. Is he really such a mama's boy? I thought he was a kind person, but turns out he just doesn't have his own will. He does whatever his mother says, and the worst part was that he turned a blind eye to his mother's bullying. For example, right after we started living together, I was the last one to take a bath after finishing my work and household chores. When I opened the lid as I was about to get into the bathtub, something felt off. When I carefully checked the temperature with my hand, I exclaimed, "This isn't hot water, it's cold." My mother-in-law had purposely replaced the hot water with cold water. It was winter and the absence of steam along with the chilly feel of the bathroom made me notice it quickly, but it was subtly irritating. It was a waste of water, and besides, I was pregnant. What if something happened to the baby in my belly? Even if she hated me for stealing her beloved son, the baby in my belly is her beloved son's child too. I was both disappointed and scared to be the target of such blatant pestering from my mother-in-law. After that, every time my mother-in-law saw me, she would say things like, "Why don't you go back home and never come back?" Or, "What on earth made my Mark choose you?" It's exhausting to hear this day after day. At first, I forced myself to think positively, saying things like, "Boys are often said to be little lovers of their mothers. Maybe she just can't let go of Mark yet. She'll surely accept me eventually, right?" But my mother-in-law never changed, and my husband didn't help either. Why do I have to be the one to endure all this? I cried many times alone, hiding myself. 2 months since then, a crucial incident occurred. I was about to go on maternity leave, and due to work adjustments and handovers, I temporarily had to do more overtime. On that day, it seemed like I wouldn't get home until after 8 p.m. "I'm sorry, I won't be able to cook dinner today." I texted my husband, and he replied with "okay," so I worked overtime. However, I tried to finish my work as quickly as possible and came home exhausted, holding my pregnant belly, and smelled something delicious. My mother-in-law seemed to have already retreated to her room, and my husband was alone in the living room. "I'm home, did you make something?" "Welcome back. No, my mom made something. It was delicious." My husband spoke cheerfully, so I went to find something to eat in the kitchen. However, no matter how much I searched, there was nothing. Dirty dishes for two and empty pots and pans remained, but there was no food. "Hey, is there none left for me?" When I asked my husband, "It seems not." He answered indifferently, "Why not?" "I guess my mom didn't make any for you." "Huh? I'm always cooking for your mother too, don't I? Why not?" Since we started living together, I have been preparing meals in the morning and evening, even for my mother-in-law. She eats it while complaining that my food tastes too salty or too bland. "But my mom is angry that you as a wife come home later from work than me, her son. She also said that a wife who doesn't have prepared meals is a failure." My husband implied that it was my fault. Isn't that unfair? Given my mother-in-law's past behavior, it was no surprise that she didn't make my dinner. She's been belligerent from the beginning. The real problem was my husband. Didn't he think anything of this?
Huh, what's unfair?
It seems he didn't. Aren't you going to prepare a portion for me?
Why?
Do I really need to explain? Your wife came home exhausted and there's no meal for me. When you get married, it requires efforts from both sides. Why do I have to be the one to put up with everything?
It's your fault for coming home late. If you're upset, you should have come home earlier and made something yourself.
That's enough. My husband is so self-centered that he doesn't understand. Both my husband and I work at the same company and our salaries are almost the same. Why do I have to do all the housework and work as well? It would be nice if Kevin could cook for me once in a while. That's what you get with a husband like Kevin when you have a mother-in-law like her. I don't think either of them will ever change. I decided to get a divorce. I was planning to go back home to give birth anyway, so I just returned to my parents' home. When my parents heard the situation from me, they were furious at Kevin and my mother-in-law. My dad said, "You don't ever have to go back there again. We sent our precious daughter off to marry, and now this? We can't stand the thought of our beloved daughter and grandchild living with such a man." When I called Kevin to let him know I had arrived at my parents', I told him I want a divorce. He whined a bit, but then he agreed, saying,
"My mom says it's best if we split up."
He was still under his mother's thumb even now. I was astounded, but I also felt guilty about taking his child away because of my own circumstances and raising our child without letting him know his father. So when our son was safely born, I sent Kevin a line message with a photo saying, "Our son is born," but he just read it and ignored it. After a while, he replied, "My mom says we don't need custody, so you don't need to send photos." I couldn't believe it. He didn't express any joy over his own son or any gratitude for the birth of our baby. I regretted ever having loved this man. I can't even remember what was good about him that made me marry him. In the end, we settled on him paying no alimony and $200 a month in child support. The child support payments only came through for the first 6 months. Truth be told, I'm currently on maternity leave, but I will have a decent income once I return to work as a full-time employee. As long as I don't splurge, I should be able to send our son to college. But I hate calling my ex-husband just to get the $200 in child support. So I waited 3 months until the payments had completely stopped. $200 a month doesn't seem too much, and I can't believe he'd forget about it. Reluctantly, I contacted my ex-husband. "Hello, I wanted to talk about the child support." When I started to speak, my ex-husband said,
"I was waiting for your call. Listen, I'd like to give you the money in person. Can we meet?"
I had never imagined he would stop paying the child support just to get me to contact him. "If you want to see our son, we could arrange something for the weekend." I thought he wanted to see our son, but he said,
"No, I mean just the two of us. How about we spend a night somewhere together?"
It was me who he wanted to see. Spend a night somewhere together, even though our son isn't even a year old yet? What does he think he's doing? This is completely unacceptable.
"You broke up with me not because you hated me, but because you didn't get along with my mom, right? So it's fine if we meet outside, right?"
His words were simply repugnant. Yes, my mother-in-law's bullying was one of the reasons, but if that was all, we could have lived separately. The real reason I got a divorce was because my ex-husband was utterly unreliable and I had had enough. I never thought he could be this crazy. Why didn't my past self notice just how awful of a person this guy was? No way, handle the child support via bank transfer. With that, I hung up the phone and blocked his number. I don't want to ever have to call him again, even if he stops transferring the money. I decided to make up the $200 a month by working. After my maternity leave, I arranged to work at a different branch at the same company so I wouldn't have to see my ex-husband while working hard to raise my son. I think it was about 7 years after the divorce. I received a call from an unknown number, which I thought was work-related, but it turned out to be my ex-husband.
"Hey, we split up because of my mom, right? She's hospitalized now. How about coming back?" he said.
No, that's not it. We split up because of your mom, but I left because you were impossible to deal with. Don't call me again, I responded. After hanging up, I promptly blocked his number again. My ex-husband's utter nonsense still astounds me. I feel deeply satisfied with my decision to leave him. Years passed, perhaps about 10 since the divorce. I had completely forgotten about my ex-husband when I received a call from an unknown number. I hadn't changed my number because I also use this cell phone for work. I had a fleeting thought of my ex-husband, but I figured it'd be fine because I had blocked his last number. To my surprise, the call was from my ex-husband, informing me of my ex-mother-in-law's death and asking if I would attend the funeral. I offer my condolences, but I can't attend the funeral. Why should I have to attend the funeral of a woman who bullied me? I struggle to understand.
Why not? My mother is no longer here. We are getting back together, so I need you to meet our relatives at this occasion.
My ex-husband took it upon himself to move the conversation along, but I interjected. Wait, what are you talking about? Hey, I absolutely won't attend the funeral, and even if heaven and earth were to turn upside down, I would never get back together with you. Got it? I hung up and of course blocked this number as well. I consulted with my mom about whether it would be appropriate to send a condolence card as a mature response, but my dad, who had been listening, vehemently opposed, saying, absolutely not. A week or so passed without doing anything. Out of the blue, my ex-husband showed up at my place. It was our first encounter in 10 years.
Long time no see, Sarah. I've come to pick you up.
He even brought a bouquet of flowers. No thank you. It's scary how little he understands. Thankfully, my son was out at a soccer club practice.
I have a lot to talk about. Why not have some tea?
He tried to enter my home without my permission, but I had no intention of letting him in. Leave!
What's wrong, Sarah? Is this a door-to-door sale?
As I was arguing with my ex-husband at the entrance, my father poked his head out.
You! How dare you step foot in our house? Get out of here right now!
With my dad's support, I felt emboldened and said to my ex-husband, we are divorced, we're strangers now, there's nothing to pick up or drop off, my home is right here, I absolutely hate the idea of remarrying you.
So, what do you say to starting over as lovers? Things were going well when we were just dating, weren't they?
No, it's just, I can't anymore, it's physically impossible for me. My ex-husband continued to push, but circumstances were drastically different now. You know, during our marriage, you never once protected me from your mother, and you never did anything yourself. After the divorce, you didn't pay child support and never visited to see your son. What makes you think I would want to get back with you? I can't understand your thinking at all. Leave before I call the police, and don't show up in front of me again. I hoped my point was clear, but my ex-husband fell silent for a moment before uttering,
Then who's going to take care of me?
Huh? Both me and my father were too bewildered to comprehend his words.
I mean, who will take care of me? Now that Mom's gone, it's supposed to be you, isn't it? I've also been missing you at night.
He fumbled through his words, possibly feeling a bit embarrassed towards the end. I felt shivers run down my spine. It's true, when you're utterly repulsed by someone, you find it hard to articulate words. My silence triggered my father's outrage.
What a joke! What do you take my daughter for? Please don't be mad, Dad.
My ex-husband pleaded, but it was of no use.
Damn it, I don't want to be called Dad by the likes of you. You're nothing more than a stranger. You disgust me to the point I can't even hold a conversation. Get out. But I came here to get my wife back.
My ex-husband stubbornly persisted, but the sound of the cop's siren got closer and louder. The police car arrived and stopped in front of our house in no time. The neighbors started to gather around to see what was happening. Sarah, I called the police since it wasn't getting anywhere, my mother announced, coming out from the back with a phone in her hand.
Good job, well done.
My father cheered with joy. And thus, my ex-husband was taken away by the police and I was relieved. I later hired a lawyer and managed to get a restraining order against my ex-husband. It was clear that maintaining distance was the best course of action when communicating was so difficult. His workplace also got to know about this, and during the spring staff changes, he was transferred to a far-off remote island. Actually, it turns out that someone from his company's HR department lived in the neighborhood, and the incident was quickly brought to their attention. With my parents' house soon needing renovations, I decided to move to a region with a strong soccer team for my son. This move should finally sever all ties with my ex-husband. My son, having grown up without a father, will continue to be raised with extra love and care from my parents and I. He is growing up healthy and lively. We are all excited to go and watch my son's upcoming soccer match together as a family. I am really looking forward to it.